This is a special report from ABC News Digital.
I'm Dan Klepler in New York, and this is an ABC News Digital special report. Liz Cheney's controversial campaign for senator has come to an abrupt end. The daughter of former Vice President Dick Cheney was challenging a fellow Republican, sitting Wyoming Senator Mike Enzi, in that state's Republican primary. But late last night, word began to trickle out that she would abandon her bid. So with the latest on why Miss Cheney is quitting the race, we're joined now from Washington by ABC News senior Washington correspondent Jeff Zeleny. Jeff, thank you for being with us this morning. The question is, why are Republicans saying that Liz Cheney withdrew from the race?
Well, Liz Cheney herself is saying that she is withdrawing from the race because of serious family concerns. So immediately, some Republicans' thoughts went to her father, former Vice President Dick Cheney, who has a history of heart conditions, but it turns out he is just fine. It is actually health concerns involving one of her daughters. One of them was recently diagnosed with juvenile diabetes at some point late last fall. That is one of them, but also just other family concerns, I'm told. Sort of vague reasoning from Republicans who've spoken to the family, have spoken to the campaign, but what one Republican friend of the family told me that this is a time when she needs to be a mother, she needs to be with her children. She has 3 daughters and 2 sons, so family concerns being the umbrella here. But Dan, also important to point out, she was struggling in this race. The campaign had not turned out like she had hoped it would. She announced her candidacy last summer and really has struggled to connect with those Wyoming voters, introduce herself to Wyoming voters. So it was a tougher road than she expected it would be, Dan.
And in fact, those frustrations by a lot of Republicans had been growing in recent days, right?
I mean, that's true. She never was able to find an issue on which to prove her own identity and really find an opening to challenge Senator Mike Enzi. Now, Mike Enzi is hardly a household name across the country, not even in Washington, but in Wyoming he is. He is a 3-term incumbent, a conservative Republican with a deep conservative voting record, and many Wyoming voters were not pleased with the idea of her moving from Virginia to Wyoming to challenge him. So there were not all that many polls out there, and the polls that were out there were not that reliable, but she was a long way from even becoming anywhere near him. The primary was in August, so she had 8 months here to work on this, but she just decided, because of those family concerns, she said, to drop out of the race today.
Despite having lots of connections, lots of money, obviously a lot of Republicans are still asking, though, what in fact happened. Why she didn't get the kind of momentum when she announced her candidacy is so early on.
Well, I think one of the things is she got in, and it was a surprise to everyone, including Mike Enzi, but it was also a surprise to the voters of Wyoming. She hadn't laid much groundwork for being a candidate there. She moved her family from Virginia to Wyoming in 2012 to Jackson Hole and spent several months driving around Wyoming, sort of introducing herself to some Republican voters. Then she suddenly just got in the race. Some people thought she was trying to scare off Senator Enzi, to have him announce his retirement, and then she would have a clear path here. But he, in fact, doubled down, and he is 69 years old. He's been in the Senate for 3 terms, but he has raised more money than he had ever had up until this point. In the last 3 months of 2013, he raised more than $1 million, I'm told, a lot of money in Wyoming for television ads. So he actually doubled down, and people liked him more, and there was no reason to unseat him. That's why she had a bit of a hard time finding an opening here in this race.
Well, fair or not, there will be speculation, this decision coming right after the holidays, in fact, that maybe her family may have played some role. I mean, aside from the health concern affecting one particular family member, but from family pressure itself. Tell me a little bit about the relationship that she has with her sister Mary, how that affected the campaign.
Well, Dan, it was a very private family feud spilling into a public view, and it all hinged on the topic of same-sex marriage. Liz Cheney announced her opposition to same-sex marriage in an interview on Fox News Sunday last fall. She said, she opposes same-sex marriage. Well, her sister Mary Cheney, her younger sister, is gay. She is married, and in fact, the two have been worked together on campaigns, and they've been fairly close. But she went on television, announced her opposition to same-sex marriage. Shortly after that, Mary Cheney's wife, Heather Poe, posted a message on Facebook really calling out Liz Cheney for saying, how can you be opposed to this? You spent so much time around our family. You've been in our house. how can you now be opposed to this? Accusing her basically trying to be politically expedient. Mary Cheney joined her wife's side of the story here, and she said she couldn't have said it better herself. Suddenly, the parents, Dick and Lynn Cheney, had to try and referee this, but sided with, if you're following me here, sided with Liz Cheney and said she has always been opposed to same-sex marriage. So a family that has done so well being disciplined all these years on a variety of topics, suddenly spilling out their disagreements in public view, so much so that the sisters weren't speaking to each other at the holidays. So that certainly was a subtext to this, but Republicans close to the campaign tell me that that was not the reason she dropped out of the race, Dan.
So then what is next for Liz Cheney? Does she move back to Virginia full-time, continue a political life there?
Well, that's the question. She's 47 years old, so she has a big future ahead of her. She's become known in Republican circles through her work on Fox News as a commentator and through her work on national security issues. So it remains an open question how long she will stay in Virginia. The family still has or how long she'll stay in Wyoming. The family still has its house in Virginia. Most people think that they will stay in Wyoming for at least a time because that's where the parents spend a lot of time. Dick and Lynn Cheney have a house and a ranch in Wyoming, so they think they'll spend a fair bit of time there. But we'll see if she makes another run for something in Wyoming or eventually is drawn back to Washington and decides to have a public career in something else, perhaps back in the commentating business. For right now, the Cheney campaign, the Cheney family, and Liz Cheney herself is not commenting. They're letting the statement speak for itself. But we'll be watching to see how long they stay in Wyoming, and that will help answer questions for what she'll do in the next chapter of her public life.
It could be a demonstration of just the kind of relationships and the ties that she built to the state in Wyoming.
That's right.
ABC's Jeff Zeleny. Jeff, thank you so much. Appreciate that. So with all of the latest on Liz Cheney's decision to quit her Senate bid, stay right here on abcnews.com. This has been an ABC News Digital Special Report. I'm Dan Kleffler in New York.